Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about our camera gear, the gear that we use to film our hunts and film this type of stuff. I'm going to be walking you through all the equipment that we have and how we use it.
He's loaded right behind. We might be able to double up. No, I'm out of here. Dude, double. Yeah, use the smoke.
So first of all, I'm going to talk about our main camera, the camera that we use the most. So this is the camera that we use the most. I have the Rode mic on it for a lot of like vlogging type of stuff where I'm holding the camera. I'll be holding it out like this, and oftentimes it'll have the shotgun mic, but you can tell whenever I have the lav mic on it. It sounds different with shotgun mic versus lav mic. That's going to be video 3 of this series. I'll be talking about the differences between a shotgun mic and a lav mic like this. The camera itself is a Sony a6300. The body of this camera is like super small without the lens. It's teeny. So depending on what lens you have on there, it makes the entire camera look really, really small. So some features about the camera itself. The main reason I got it was it's Sony's least expensive camera that can still shoot 120 frames per second, which was a pretty big deal to me because I just love that smooth 120 frames per second slow-mo, especially in kill shots. So this camera has a flip out screen. It doesn't go all the way up, so if I'm vlogging I can't really see myself on the screen, but it's good for if you're down here filming, you can see what's on the screen decently. It also has an EVF that is motion activated, so whenever you put your finger up here across, if you look at the screen, whenever I put my finger across there, it takes away what's on the screen. So whatever is normally on the screen here, I can look, whenever I put my eye up to the EVF, I can see exactly what I'm seeing through here. And I can see it better through here than what I can on the screen. So I like that for if I'm checking to see if something's in focus. Sometimes when I'm hunting, I'll do that, make sure something is in focus. I can do that by looking through the EVF. Also, if it's really bright outside and you can't see your screen very well, I use that all the time to check my exposure and make sure I'm not overexposed. One thing I don't like about this camera is the record button is all the way on the side, so if you're filming here like this, it's not over here. You can't just record, you have to make a separate trip over here to turn on the record button. But the nice thing about that is you shouldn't be just bumping it and it turning off without you really wanting it to. This thing does pretty decent in low light. It's a crop sensor camera, it's not a full frame, but the ISO goes up pretty high and does better with digital noise than our other camera, which I'll touch on in a little bit. So now about this lens, this is the only lens that I have for this camera right now. I'm going to get another one soon, but this lens is a 18-105 f4, and I'll talk about what those things mean in the next video on the series. One thing about this lens is, and it's an electronic lens, so if I zoom like this, nothing happens unless the camera is turned on, and by moving this control, it basically tells the camera to zoom in the lens, which I'm not 100% sold on, because if I want to zoom in on something really quick, it's not always as responsive as one that physically moves, like this lens here. It's not an electronic lens, so I can go like this and zoom in and out as fast as I want without having to have the camera on and have the camera tell the lens what to do. The nice thing about this lens, being that it is an electronic one, is it has this zoom here, and it's just like a camcorder is, that you can use this thing to zoom in and pull it down to zoom out. So I use that a lot when I'm hunting, especially if I'm self-filming. I can just reach over, push that slider up, and I know I'm zooming in. But the thing I don't like about it is sometimes you push it up and it does like that. It's stuck. It doesn't come all the way back down. So then sometimes your video zooms past even when you thought that you stopped zooming in. So that's one thing I don't really like about this lens. But I mean, for what we're doing, it's all right. So now it's time to talk about the camera that we're filming on now, which is a Canon T4i. So to do this, I'm gonna take my phone and take a video as I talk about the camera that we're filming on right now. Okay, so this is the camera that we're filming on right now. It is the Canon T4i, and I have a prime lens on that. I'll talk about that more in the next video. This is the basic camera right here, then lens, and this is an added battery grip right here. So this does not come with the normal camera as you buy it, but I bought this separate so that I have a longer battery life. This camera is only 12 megapixels, whereas the other Sony camera is 24 megapixels. So this one's only half the quality of the other one in pictures. The nice thing about this thing is it has a flip out screen that you can tilt around. So if you're vlogging or something where you're videoing yourself, you can see yourself, see what you're filming, make sure everything's in focus. The thing I don't like about this camera is that it only shoots 1080p in 30 frames per second. So that was one reason why I bought the Sony camera that I did. So that's the main differences there between the Sony and the Canon. Now there are a couple technical differences between these two. Canon in general takes better, the colors on Canon's cameras are generally better than Sony's. So just something to think about. Usually straight out of the camera, if I'm taking pictures with the Canon or the Sony, the Canon camera, even though it's cheaper, is going to usually put out better pictures than my Sony, especially with the prime lens that we have on it right now. So for the Canon camera, I have 4 lenses. The 50mm f1.8 that we're filming on right now. I'll talk more about this in the next episode. And then a 75-300 f4 to 5.6. So this is made for a lot of those like really far away deer or where you want close-up shots. And then the next lens is the one that we use the most when we're using this as our main filming camera for hunting. Before we had the Sony camera, this lens was on like 95% of the time whenever we went hunting. It's an 18-135, so it gets those wide angle shots as well as those really tight shots in the woods. And if you're only wanting to get one lens and do it for pretty cheap, 18-135 is going to get pretty good. If you're on Sony, you can get a 24-240, and at its widest is zoomed in a little bit more than this lens, but when it's all the way zoomed in, it's definitely zoomed in more than what this lens goes. So the last lens that I have is a 10-18mm. This is what I use a lot for vlogging. It's a really wide angle lens, so it's great for if you're filming yourself. So the thing that I wish was different on this lens is that the aperture is 4.5 to 5.6, which is not great, but I mean, for a wide angle lens, you don't really need that much background blur. So those are the lenses that I have for this camera. So this Sony camera here costs about $600 or $700, and then with the lens it was another like $400. So that's definitely our most expensive camera. And then the Canon camera is about $300 plus all the extra lenses. You can get a Canon setup for probably $500. And then the cheapest camera that we have is this GoPro. It's a Hero 3 Plus, so it's a pretty old one. But it gets the job done in 1080, which isn't great, but still gets the job done. You can get these now on eBay for like $50 or $55, so they're pretty cheap. But they do go through batteries pretty quickly. We use this GoPro strictly for wide angle shots, mostly to capture the hunter getting ready to shoot and that sort of thing. And this is the main camera we use to film whenever we go fishing. So this Sony camera is a mirrorless camera, which means that if I take off the lens, the sensor is right below the lens. Now the Canon camera is a DSLR, so if I take off the lens, there'll be a mirror there before there's the sensor. And then of course the GoPro, you can't really take off the lenses, so I'm not sure what that is. A really common type of camera that a lot of people use to film hunts is a camcorder. That's really what most people use to film hunts. I personally like DSLRs over camcorders. So generally in DSLR and mirrorless cameras, you can get more cinematic footage than what you can with a camcorder. And I really like that cinematic look that you get from a DSLR or mirrorless instead of using a camcorder. But if you want to use a camcorder, those are easier to use. You don't have all the manual settings nearly as much as what you do on these cameras. So if you're just looking to get into your hunts, I would recommend you purchase a camcorder first. So we run 2 different types of mics, a shotgun mic and a lapel mic or a lavalier mic. So this is the Rode VideoMic Pro. You have to manually turn this mic on and you can adjust how loud the input is here. But if you want the version that turns on automatically, you can get the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus, which is really nice if you're just getting into it. but I've used this mic enough, I naturally turn it on. But at first when I got this mic, I was constantly forgetting to turn it on, and that left me with no audio, so if you're just starting out and you have a little bit more money to spend, I would recommend you get the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. That way you are sure to always have audio. Or you can just get a really budget version for like 30 bucks, or get like a Boya mic. That's how I first started out. Or get the Rode, the small one, whatever it is. This one right here from B&H. That's another great mic to start out with. And that one you don't have to turn on, and you know that you're gonna be getting good audio. So now for the lav mics, this is the Rode Wireless Go right here, and that is plugged into the camera, just how a normal mic would. And then here I have, this is the actual mic for the Rode VideoMic Go. I plugged in a lavalier here, and then right here, I plugged it in. I really like this lavalier because it has this nice loop, and it costs a little more than what some other options do, but I really like it. Puts out some really good, clean audio. So that's the main differences between the lavalier mic and the shotgun mic. Shotgun mic is stationed on the camera, capturing audio from the camera, while this lav mic is clipped onto me, capturing audio mostly my mouth, me talking, and that type of stuff. And that's going to be the main topic for video number 3 in this series, is going to be shotgun mics versus lav mics. I'll go into the sound differences and everything between that. So if you want to learn more about shotgun mics and lav mics, make sure you stick around till episode number 3. So once you get a little bit more advanced, you might want to look into getting a monitor. I actually just purchased one about a week ago, and that's what Cody's using right now. That way he can see what, as I'm sitting here, he can see that I'm in focus and making sure that he's getting the shot. Also, another reason I got it was for my Sony camera. I can flip it around on top of the camera. That way I can see myself if I'm like vlogging or something like that. But the downside is it is a little bit heavy, but the particular monitor that I have is lighter than a lot of other monitors. So as far as video stabilization goes, in the tree we have a camera arm. It's actually a really, really cheap one. And I was looking for it today, and I think we must have left it up in the tree last time we hunted. So I don't have it here to show, but it's very simple. And this last season was the last season that we'll be using it. It doesn't have any way to self-level, but if you're looking for a good solid camera arm, and this is the one that I'm planning on purchasing, and that is the Muddy Outfitter arm. It's a really solid arm. It's got a way that you can level it, make sure everything is level, and it has a really good 2-part arm to set up at the tree for really sturdy footage. So I'm planning on using that this next fall. So obviously, you probably know about tripods. We have 3 different tripods. One right now, the light is on, and we're filming on one right now, and then I have a really cheap one I got that I have never used yet. It only costs like $1, I think, so yeah. So I recently got a gimbal, mostly because I do some wedding videos, but I think that can be helpful for hunting, especially if you just have one person just for filming. I don't really know how you would use it much, except for maybe on the recovery, or if you're filming some stuff afterward. If you go out the next day and film it, it could be nice to have a gimbal. But yeah, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically a electronic handheld device with motors that stabilizes out your camera. So anyway, maybe I'll touch more on that in a future video, we'll see. So oftentimes when you shoot deer, as you know, it's close to dark and you don't recover the deer till after dark. So if you notice in our videos, there's not a lot of holding the camera in one hand, holding the flashlight in the other hand, and a lot of the time you can't see where you're tracking. No, that's not how our videos are. And the reason for that is because I have a video light that I bought a couple years ago for that specific reason. It all comes in this nice little box. So this thing is even more compact than the monitor is, and battery life on this thing is pretty good, and it is pretty bright. And as you can see right here, you can adjust the brightness on the back. You can scroll down, you can scroll up. So whenever we're going to recover deer, I will usually turn on this light and then set my aperture, ISO, all that stuff to match the lighting. So I can mount this light to the top of my camera with this little mount that comes with it, screws right up into the bottom. Then this is the hot shoe that goes right on top of your camera. So I'm going to show you an adapter that we bought and how a typical recovery setup looks like. So I have the mic on here right now. I'm just gonna take that off, and then I have this mount right here, and this is a 3-way hot shoe mount. So put that into here, and now instead of just having one hot shoe mount, I have 3 different hot shoe mounts. Put the mic on this side, and then have to put this adapter on the bottom of the light. And then I'll put the light in the top mount. So there you go. Here's my camera. I can have the light on it. I have my mic, I'm getting my audio. I can film what's out in front of me, and I'm getting audio, and it's all good. It's all a pretty good system. So yeah, this is our setup for recovering deer after dark. So you might have been wondering about this the whole time. This piece of equipment right here, and this is the drone that we use. It's not actually ours. It's my sister's boyfriend's, but he doesn't use it much, so he said that we could keep it at our house for a while and fly it and use it. So this is a Phantom 3 Standard. It is quite bulky compared to newer drones, but it gets the job done for the most part. This drone is a lot cheaper now than what it was when it first came out. You can get one for like 300 bucks now. I don't think it's worth it, because for the same money you can get a Mini 2 or a Mini that can literally do the same stuff as this drone. It can shoot 2.7K in 30 frames per second or 1080p in 30 frames per second. Frames per second is not that big of a deal, but it's so big and bulky compared to a Mini 2 that's like this big plus the props, and the Mini 2 is literally better. The gimbal's better. It's like 100 times quieter. This thing is so loud when it takes off, it's crazy. But the Mini 2 is so much quieter. It can fly so much further. This thing can't even fly like 1 mile away until it starts glitching out and trying to return to home. So if you're gonna spend the money now, I would say go ahead and get the Mini 2 over the Phantom 3 Standard. Just my opinion. If you have any questions about it, just comment it down below. So I'm guessing some of you are wondering what software we use to edit. And I used to use Filmora X, Wondershare Filmora X. Recently got a new computer that has much better specs. It's a Dell XPS 13-inch with 32 gigs of RAM. So the reason I didn't use anything else but Filmora earlier was because the computer we had really couldn't handle it. The editor that I use right now is DaVinci Resolve. It takes a lot of horsepower. It's really demanding from a computer, but thankfully I have the computer to do it, and that gets the job done just fine. But if you watch our last probably 2 or 3 videos, that was all edited on DaVinci Resolve. It definitely has a really steep learning curve. You can't just learn it overnight. There's all kinds of stuff about it that you won't figure out till you're weeks into it. So that pretty much wraps up all of our camera gear that we use. I would love to hear your feedback, what you think about certain gear. If you have any other questions, just let us know. Comment it down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, you found it helpful, we'd go ahead and hit the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe and let us know in the comment section. So that's all for episode 1. Stay tuned for episode 2, where I'm going to be talking about camera settings and that sort of stuff. So if you want to know specific camera settings and the exact settings we use, focal length, ISO, shutter speed, all that type of stuff, I'm going to be talking about that in episode 2. So stay tuned for that. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.